Thinkers, I wonder what your wishes are right about now. Are they pragmatic, like wishing you'll get a budget, the budget you need to grow your business? Or are you wishing you'll meet your numbers so that you'll get your bonus and your team will get the raises? Good wishes. Are they personal, like wishing you'll get some time off with your family over the holidays, or just some time off to relax and clear your heads? Are they societal, like wishing our country could find a way to be less divisive and remind ourselves that we have a lot of things in common? I don't know about you, but I'm really wishing that 2021 is the year of the hug, when we can actually reconnect the way we took so for granted prior to the pandemic. Well, if you haven't figured out by now, this show is about wishes, wildly improbable wishes, wishes that, as you'll soon learn, actually came true. It's a big story, and to tell it, we actually have three guests. We have Keane and Shaun Veran, who are the co-founders of OURA, a company you'll learn a lot about in a few minutes, and Gloria Crockett, President and CEO of Make-A-Wish of Orange County and in the Inland Empire, which is my home state of California. So first of all, welcome all three of you to the show.
Thank you.
So it's a couple of things. If you're actually listening to the show, one of the things that I'll give a kick out of, Keane and Shaun are both wearing masks, which is the first time with that. So anyway, well, hopefully the sound will be good. But Keane, this story starts with you. It's 11 years ago. I'm thinking it's 2009. And I watched the very powerful video on your website, and we will, in the show notes, we will link to the video, which is really well done, by the way. But take us back to when you're 11 and what was happening in your life.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia in November of 2008. And so at the time I was in 5th grade. I was just a standard normal kid in elementary school playing sports. And I started to realize that I was running out of breath really easily. So I went from running through a field back and forth for soccer to catching my breath after 5 to 10 steps. And I knew something was wrong. So we went to doctors and they did some tests. And then a few weeks later, they had me hospitalized because my blood count was so dangerously low. And so during that period, they started running more tests as I was getting blood transfusions. And it was after those 2 weeks when the doctors finalized what was wrong with me. And I remember seeing my parents get pulled aside and they talked to my mom and my dad. And I just remember seeing how shocked and how much pain they were in immediately. I noticed my mom was holding back tears after talking to the doctor. And it took me so long to really understand and process what it meant to have cancer. Even though I knew something was wrong with my body, I didn't understand the impact or how severe my illness was. And I think for the first month or two, it was easily one of the hardest things just to adjust to. I went from being in a classroom with my peers to having a chair hooked up to needles and getting treatment in a pediatric oncology every day, like a 9-to-5 job. And so I think it was just,
let me ask you questions just to give us, how long was the treatment period from the time that you first, were treated to, I guess that we'll call it when you were cancer-free?
Yeah, so I had active cancer cells in my body for 6 months. And then after that period, I went into remission, which was another 3 years of treatment. And then it took another 5 years after that to be declared officially a cancer survivor.
So that's 8.5 years.
About, yeah.
So at some point along the way during your treatment, you make this wish. And how old were you when you made that wish?
I was, I think, 10 years old when Make-A-Wish first approached me about the concept. My family had never heard of the organization before. And so they talked about what it was and the possibilities were endless. And so after a lot of careful deliberation and a lot of thinking, I decided that I wanted to meet President Obama. And for a 10-year-old kid, that was no easy feat to do. And so it actually took 2 years for my wish to get granted. So during those 2 years, I was just waiting, and I was just really hopeful for that wish to come true. And then in 2011, or sorry, yeah, in 2011, it finally came true. And it was just something that I would have never expected. And that experience was just so rewarding and so re-energizing, and it gave me a new hope to really overcome my cancer. And that wish was something that Shaun and I will have. It's a memory that we will never forget, and it's something that really changed our outlook and how we really see and how we really wanted to approach and defeat my battle with cancer.
There's a couple of things that come to mind as you're talking about this story, and one is, the audacity of that wish. And I happen to be listening to President Obama's memoir right now, and of course he wrote the book The Audacity of Hope, and so it just, imagine. I think any of us would have wanted to have met him, but to be a 10-year-old and to wish that is really an extraordinary thing. And I have to say that if there's an inspiration one for anybody listening here, man, wish big. Wish big, because the worst that happens is it doesn't come true, but you wished big, and oh my gosh, I want to hear about that experience. I feel like, because I'm listening to the book right now, he's in my ear, and I feel like I spent now, it's a 24-hour listen, just so you know. So, and I'm only 3 hours into it, but 3 hours of hearing his voice, you feel like he's right over on your shoulder. Talk about, going into the Oval Office, and what are the highlights for you of that?
Oh my God, there's so many highlights of that wish alone. So we spent a week in Washington, D.C. So I was in middle school at this point when my wish was coming true. And the best thing about Make-A-Wish wishes is that you never know when they're gonna happen. They always plan it to be some grand surprise. And so I remember it was during my spring break in middle school. So my dad said, "Oh, we're flying out to Washington, D.C." And our family never travels. So I was already like a big indicator, but it didn't occur to me. And then it was only when we checked into our hotel, and my dad told me that we'd be going to the White House the next morning. And that was when it finally clicked. I was like, oh my gosh. After 2 years, it was just so incredible to realize that. And so when we went to the White House, we immediately saw, we went through the tour, and after the tour ended of the White House, we were just sitting outside a hallway, and they said that we'd be meeting him very shortly after. Then a wall swung open, and we walked through, and I found myself in the Oval Office, staring up this tall figure, and I didn't even realize how I was just so in shock and such awe. It was all coming to fruition after waiting for so long. And I think everyone sees what the Oval Office looks like, and it was exactly like it was on a TV. It felt like it was just incredible to see. And I was a short, chubby kid, so staring up at President Obama was just incredible. I was so intimidated at the same time. But after talking to him, it was just such a magical moment. And ironically, it was almost like a blur. It felt like a dream talking to him. And I just remember one of the things he said to me was, "It's kids like you who make me proud." And so for me, that was the words that I will always have. And after that meeting, we saw him take off a Marine One, and there were so many other incredible moments we had in Washington, D.C.
I'm just imagining, because again, having listened to him, he talks about his kids in a way that, a devoted father, not a president, would. And I imagine he was just remarkably personable, right? You just felt like he was actually paying attention to you despite whatever was going on in the world at the time for him.
Yeah, it was actually during the time where the government was on the verge of a shutdown when he saw us. So I think that really just adds to the character of who he is. And you can imagine a conversation with a 10-year-old isn't going to be an amazing, incredible thing, but he took me so seriously and he took me for every word. And so it was something that really felt emotional and so empowering just to talk to him.
Now, the photos that are in the video are amazing. And by the way, you don't look chubby. He is tall. He's 6'1". But also, how about, you know, how cool was it that your little, because you're the older one, right? I mean, that your little brother got to do this.
You know, it was amazing that Keane was able to go experience this wish. And I was so shocked that we were able to be a part of it too, and go and visit him in the Oval Office. So for me and our family, it was just incredible to see how excited he was as well, just to be talking to President Obama and touring the entire White House. So I think it was just so amazing to see that version of Keane, because it was so different, I think, from some of the time that we had at home when he was going through cancer. So I think experiencing the wish, we saw just how much power it really gave him in his cancer journey.
And I imagine it must have been very hard. I mean, on you, this is your little brother, right? Your younger brother. What's your age difference?
We're 6 years apart. 6
years apart. Yeah, I have an older one. I have two older brothers, but one who's 6 years apart. That's a big gap.
Yeah.
Right, it is. And I noticed in the picture, you're like here and he's like here. But it must have been really hard on you and the family too, because you all go through this together. And suddenly there's no, you know, all this air in the room is being sucked up in a sense by Keane. It must have had an impact on you as well.
Yeah, I think it was very difficult for our entire family to undergo this experience. Cancer really just changes your entire life for the family unit, because your days are just become going to the hospital to make sure Keane's okay and make sure he gets the proper treatment. We had like a little station even in our house, you can consider it like a large first aid kit with all of the stuff he needed for his cancer regimen that we had to do at home, which had all his medication and his bandages. So it was hard for us, I think, just to be able to change to this new life, but also have his life be in such danger at the same time. It was really scary for everyone. But I think what gave us a lot of hope was that everyone that we knew really rallied around us, and there was just such an outpouring of support from our community, like our friends and our extended family and relatives. But more than that, I think we had a lot of support from just complete strangers who were just wanting to help us. And we got to interact with so many nonprofits just like Make-A-Wish, who was able to do amazing things for Keane during this time when we really needed it.
And I will move on to the thing, but I'm thinking about you. You're 17, your younger brother's 11, 18. Those are the years where you're really supposed to be buckling down and getting ready for college. How could you not have been distracted? But you ended up, did you go right to college at 18 like you would have planned?
Yes, I did. So I went to college when I was 18. Actually, we went on his wish during my first year of college. I remember when my dad gave us the call, it was, I was in my third week of school and we had midterms the next week. And he was like, "What are you doing next week?" I was like, "Oh, I have school, of course." And then he's like, "Well, try and get out of it because we're going to Washington, D.C. next week." And I was like, "Oh man." So I had to scramble to get out of all my tests. But
Right.
I just took all of them early so that we could go experience this once in a lifetime trip.
So amazing. So Gloria, one thing that must be very rewarding for you is to hear these stories. And you're doing this thing all the time, but talk a little bit about how it makes you feel personally when you hear one of these stories coming to fruition, if you will, one of these wishes coming true.
Well, I think it first makes me think about, wow, our mission and our vision is so incredibly powerful. And, you know, I was listening to both Keane and Shaun speak, and, you know, they talked about it being magical. They talked about being powerful. They talked about it being inspirational. and all of those things. You know, I sat here and I got chills, especially when you said you walked into the Oval Office and you looked up and you saw President Obama. I mean, that's such a wonderful feel. I could feel to a certain degree what they were feeling from going on the wish. And what's so important about a wish is, you know, that hope is so essential. And I love the fact that we're talking with Shaun as well and the impact on the family, because wishes are granted as a family unit. The wish, of course, is the wish kids, and that was Keane, of course, but the whole family gets to have that experience because everyone's been impacted, and we want them to go on some type of adventure or see some, whatever the smile that's being brought to their face as a unit. Right. And I think that's so very important.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but it's such a good point, and it's one that I think has relevance to the broader conversation that I have with chief marketing officers through this show and through another thing that I started called CMO Huddles, where you could be working with somebody and some member of the family or something happens to someone in the group. It happens to everybody. It happens to all of them. And so one of the things that has happened in this pandemic is that our work lives and our personal lives have merged. And so when there's a challenge on a personal level, there's a challenge on a business level and vice versa. And it's so interesting that you all have made that decision to include the family. And I think that, you know, a lot of managers are thinking about that. Leaders are thinking about, oh, wow, it's not just an employee. I'm employing the whole gang. But anyway, we could go down that pipeline. But I want to just, for a second, as we talk about Make-A-Wish and on a regional level, if I'm a Orange County or Inland Empire business, or frankly, I've got listeners all over the country and even some around the world. What is a good way for a business, a marketer, you know, and these are broad-based organizations, to participate with Make-A-Wish?
I think there's a variety of ways. I think first off, when you're thinking about the family unit and the workplace, given COVID, you know, volunteering, it's so very important. There's lots of campaigns that you can still do from home around volunteering. And one of them, a big campaign that's happening right now is our Believe campaign with Macy's, where, you know, anyone can write a letter to Santa, and writing those letters help bring funds to Make-A-Wish and allows us to grant wishes. So volunteer, we need you. And you can look at wish.org and you can find out any Make-A-Wish location across the nation. And I think also the other important piece of it is help us tell our story. Your marketers. I think that, you know, when you listen to this podcast and someone says, well, what did you do today? You say, you know what, I learned about Make-A-Wish, and Make-A-Wish grants wishes to children between the ages of 2.5 to 18. And their immediate family also join in on those wishes. So what are those type of wishes? I wish to be, I wish to meet, I wish to go, I wish to have, I wish to give. These are all different types of wishes that are taking place. So some of you might say, well, how can you go anywhere right now? Well, we can't go anywhere quite right now unless we do it virtually over Zoom. However, we are doing tangible wishes right now. Those are wishes that, you know, I want to go on a shopping spree. I want to have a splash pad. I want to ride with my dad driving in a blue Lamborghini. You know, there's a lot of other things you can do. And so I think, you know, tell the story. Let folks know that we're right here in their backyard. If you're here in Orange County in the Inland Empire, let everybody know the inspiration and hope that's provided through a wish, because, you know, studies have shown that parents say that their kids are much more engaged in their treatment and much more willing to get those shots and those needle prods when they know they have a wish that's going to be happening after they finish their treatment. So those types of things are so important. And when kids tell about what did their wish do for them, they say, you know, it provided me hope. And hope is so essential, especially now as we're going through COVID. We need to continue to share that message and have people hear the joy of what a wish brings.
You know, I think you should run a leadership workshop, because everything that you just said, if you replace the word employee with kids with employee, Employees need encouragement. They need wishes. They need hope that something's going to happen. And that allows me to transition, because this isn't just, the story doesn't stop here. And that's why I was so intrigued to be able to talk to the three of you. So we're going to fast forward to a few years back. I'm not sure, maybe the two of you, Shaun, Keane, you can tell me, when did you start OURA? I know the backstory, but what year? And then I have questions for you.
So we launched in 2017, and it was actually the day I was diagnosed a cancer survivor.
The day you were diagnosed. Okay.
Sorry. The day I was declared, not diagnosed.
That's amazing. So that's literally, and you were 2008, so it's 9 years later, or 8.5 years later. Amazing. Okay. Now, this is really important, because you, it was your cancer experience that led you to this. Talk a little bit about what got you to the, tell the hat story.
Yeah, so like most cancer patients, I lost my hair through chemotherapy treatments. And as I was wearing hats to cover up, we kind of realized in general how filthy a lot of things are in general. And so as I was wearing hats a lot, you realize that they're the perfect incubators for bacteria. It's really rare that people wash their hats, and it was really hard to find a stylish hat that would stay clean. And so that was just a problem that I faced. And going on a low bacteria diet, being immunosuppressed, it really made our entire family aware of how susceptible and how dirty things can really be beyond just hats. So everything from everyday items, from like jackets to towels. It really made us rethink of how we needed to take all these extra precautions to keep me safe. And so when we launched OURA, we really wanted to start with a hat, and that was something that really just hit home for us. So we wanted to make products that were just cleaner and safer. And so we just felt like the hats were the perfect.
And how long did it, first of all, amazing. How long did it take you to actually, from conceiving, wouldn't it be cool if we had a hat that was could be antimicrobial from the idea to the actual finished product? How long did that take?
I don't know if we can really put a timeline to it. I think that was just, I think inventions are created when you face a problem, and they're always answering that problem. And so I think early on, that was something we always talked about. And I think through the years, as I was going through remission, we always talked about wanting to do more and do good and create a company and create safer products. And so I think once I became a cancer survivor, that was just the perfect moment for Shaun and I to really just take the reins and just fully commit and start OURA.
So starting a business is an act of bravery in many ways. What made you think that you could actually do this?
I think there were no indicators that showed we could do this. We didn't really have much experience, but just from my own career choices, I never liked science. And so I think I always had I was always gravitated towards business. And I think that was always what I wanted to do, was really be able to give back and have my own business. And I think for me, I recognize that businesses are such an influential way to create change in the world. And so for me, it was always something that I wanted to do. And having Shaun there as the smart scientific one, I think it really made the perfect combination for the both of us.
So Shaun, this gets back to you. You're in college. You get back after you got a degree in some science degree. What'd you get?
It was microbiology.
Oh, perfect. Now, was that an accident, or were you sort of thinking? I mean, the connection from your brother's illness to you studying microbiology, was there a link?
I think there was a little bit of a link. At first, I was debating whether I wanted to go into the health field and either become a doctor or a PA of some sort. But I realized that it wasn't for me. But I've always been interested in microbiology and just how bacteria and viruses interact with the immune system, and it's essentially like a war on both sides. So I always found it so fascinating. And when we were going through his cancer treatment, it was this kind of topic was something that came up a little frequently about how we could kind of make products that were a little cleaner. And so I would always think about that when I was in classes, and just how you have things like you have human interventions that are designed in order to help our immune systems fight better. And so we were thinking, how can we incorporate that into more everyday items like your clothes? And that's kind of how the idea was born. And so I think we've had this idea since then, but it took us a little while to grow up a little bit and get more understanding before we can actually create something.
Just for folks listening, how old are you now, both of you?
I'm 28.
And I'm 22.
28 and 22. Okay, yeah, grown up. Okay, what's struck me as you were speaking, Shaun, was that the notion that you're going through we, first of all, you used the term we, which that you, the family, were going through this, which is so true. But as you were doing it, you were thinking, there's a problem here. Maybe we can solve that. And I just think most people don't do that. I just want to acknowledge for a moment the extraordinary nature of your thing. Most people would say, woe is me, this sucks, how do I get through it? Where you guys went, maybe there's something we can do. So first of all, I just want to applaud you for that. And I hope let the listeners sort of realize it's extraordinary that you thought about that. I will also say that one thing that has happened, I just did an episode on the show where I talked about the CMO's silver linings and all of the things that, this was a horrible year for besides just a horrible year in so many different ways. Yet so many good things actually came of it that it is remarkable that you had the wherewithal to sort of find these things, and maybe they were a distraction, I don't know. But so you launched the company 3 years ago with hats. You've since added some other products, right?
Yes, that's correct. So we have hats, as well as we've launched a skincare line and some aprons, and then we have masks that we released this year as well.
Good timing for masks, yes.
Yeah.
And how is the business doing?
So I think we've seen a lot of growth this year in particular. I mean, we specialize in making antimicrobial products, and we've been making it for 3 years now. So what we noticed, though, is that this year we saw a much greater demand for all of our products across the board. So I think it's in line. It's the climate that we're in. Everyone is looking for ways to keep themselves more safe and protected and healthier during these times.
And there is a goodwill component, and that links us back to Make-A-Wish, and talk about how that works and is incorporated into your sales, into your business model.
Yeah, so our experience with Make-A-Wish was such a influential and impactful thing for us. So that was always something that we really wanted to emphasize when we were creating a business. And there's actually a Japanese legend: if you fold 1,000 origami cranes, a wish is granted. So in honor of that, for every purchase, it helps to contribute towards making a wish come true. So our name Ouragami is a play off the word origami crane. So it really just ties in line with how we really want to give back. And I think giving for us has always been something that's been an emphasis for our personal lives. And so we really wanted to make it a part of our brand's identity to give back.
So that gets us back to Gloria. Why don't we get all businesses to be inspired and as enlightened as Shaun and Keane?
Let's do it. So I think, how you enlighten people again, it goes back to the storytelling. It's being able to share the power of a wish. And I mean, with Aura, they're paying it forward. They're helping us grant more wishes by, helping through their customer support and their personal support to say, you know what, we want wishes to come true. We want other families to feel like we did. We want to make sure that we're bringing a smile to someone's face. And I think that's so, so very important. And being able to tell a story like this, it's amazing. I mean, when I first met them, it was a phone call this past June, And I was talking to Keane and I was like, oh, this is great. And then we met in person. I'm like, oh my gosh, you two young men are just, I mean, I wasn't doing anything like they were doing at their age. And I think they have a lot to teach a lot of others and to show others that, you know, when you're in a place of doing something good through their company, it has the employees are fulfilled because they know what's happening, that they're fulfilled, their families fulfilled, and then the wish kids, they're getting their wishes based on their efforts. So I mean, I think that's just, you know, so well rounded. And what we can do is just say, again, tell more stories. Let's get out there because, you know, I hadn't realized this. I've been with Make-A-Wish for 1.5 years, but 1 out of 3 individuals have been touched by a wish. I didn't know that.
Oh.
And I thought, oh my, you know, let's tell that story as well.
So, Keane, Shaun, your business is 3 years old. Most businesses don't last that long. Believe it or not, a lot of startups fail in the first 3 years. Generally, they fail because they lack capital. Hopefully, you've got enough funding to get going. What would you say as businessmen, people, as business people, what do you think you've learned, or a bit different question is, I think, because of the audience. What isn't working for you right now that you would love someone from the audience to, and we'll include contact information or ways that they can get, that you would say, God, I wish I had somebody who could help me with this.
Oh, that's an interesting question.
Make a wish, please.
So I think right now we're in a spot where we're looking to create more expansion in our portfolio. So I think what we're looking to work with more people who can help us tell stories. Just like how Gloria said, we want to be able to push out our story wider. And we think that we would love to work with more creatives who'd be able to help us tell this powerful story and the stories of other wish kids, essentially, so that we are able to spread this word further about how much power a wish can really have.
Okay, so that sounds like influencers. That sounds
videographers,
right?
Yeah.
And it's funny, I just did a show, a LinkedIn Live show with a couple of interesting influencers. Okay, so let's go back to sort of, as you look at this, because what I love about young entrepreneurs is you just don't know what you don't know. And that is a blessing, believe it or not. That is an absolute blessing, because if you knew all the things that you didn't know, you'd go, I'm not starting this. This is too hard. What have been some of the surprises and the challenges that you've faced as you've gotten this business off the ground?
Yeah,
so many.
I think it's been a harsh learning curve, I think. But we can even go a little bit more recently. For an example, I'd say of one of the challenges that we've had. So if we go back to just early at the start of the pandemic, this is like in March or April, we had been developing our masks as we saw how things were playing out overseas, and we knew we had a product that would be able to serve a very important need at this time, because we have a unique technology. We believe we have a superior product, and we're made in America. So we had all of our product here in the country already. But the problem for us was just, how do we get the word out? Our typical channels were advertising, but all of those were shut down to masks, essentially. So we tried Facebook, we tried Google, we tried Snapchat, we tried TikTok, we tried all of the channels, and all of them were shut down to masks, because these kind of companies, they can't tell what's real and what's fake. So they can't tell the difference, and they also want to prevent people from price gouging.
Right.
So we had to kind of take a step back and figure out, how is it that we can utilize other channels in order to make sure that the people who need our products are able to get them. And so we had to take a step back and look to maybe our email list and contact our existing customers that way, but also find other channels like press, or work with affiliates in order to push our message out there. So I think we've learned over time to be very nimble and be able to move as flexibly as we need to in order to get what we need to.
Well, I can tell you that every marketing officer, CMO that I speak with will use the terms nimble and agile. When they think back on 2020, most of them, whatever plan they had in March 2020, scrapped completely. Completely. And so you're right in there. And for a different reason, most of them had half their dollars in physical events. Couldn't do that, right? Yeah. So you've certainly got it. Well, one favor for the folks that are listening, can you spell your company URL just so they know what it is, just in case as they're driving, they'll be able to find it?
Sure. Yeah. So that's going to be Ouragami. So that's OURAGAMI.org.
Got it. And I love the little crane origami and all of that. All right. Well, I have more questions, but we're going to wrap up because this is sort of the end of the year goodwill, and folks aren't commuting. So they're right about now, they're finishing their run and they're saying thank you to the three of you for such an inspiring story and being and giving back and just reminding us of the power of a wish. And it's just so, I'm so grateful to have been able to spend time with you three.
The pleasure's all ours. Yeah. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So, and to the listeners, I want you to go to renegade.com and check out the show notes. We'll have a link to the video. We may even embed the video, assuming it's on YouTube. We'll have links to Make-A-Wish on a national level, as well as the Orange County Inland Empire version. So you can find out. I think there's a lot of opportunities for companies to partner with Ouragami and think about that. And maybe you want to get all of these hats for your employees as a special gift. So I think there's ways that you can get involved from here. Obviously, Make-A-Wish will welcome you as a volunteer. I know I've been inspired. So thank you all for listening. And now it's time for me to read the ending notes. So again, thank you, Gloria. Thank you, Shaun and Keane. All right. Renegade Thinkers Unite is written and directed by Drew Neiser. Hey, that's me. Audio production is by Sam Beck. Show notes are written by Melissa Caffrey. The music is by the amazing Burns Twins, and the intro voiceover is Linda Cornelius. To find the transcripts of all episodes, suggest future guests, or learn more about quite possibly the savviest B2B marketing agency in New York City, visit renegade.com. And until next time, keep those renegade thinking caps on and strong.